Hey, what's up? I'm Bryce Blanco.
And I'm Dominic Griffel. We want to welcome you to ShopTalk, a new podcast we created simply for our love of movies, shows, and good old-fashioned storytelling. Our love for discussing and exploring these movies and shows in depth and getting our opinions and our theories out there.
We've been friends for a long time now, and a lot of these conversations center around the creativity of art, music, movies, and just storytelling in general. Most of our conversations happen in my barbershop while I'm cutting Dominic's hair. We'll be covering everything from movies to shows to anime to the occasional story. We'll hit movies old and new, all different genres.
We'll be hitting on the DC Universe, Marvel Universe, Star Wars Universe, Dark Universe, standalones. So stay tuned, sit back, and let's jump right in. And thanks for listening. So hopefully as we get going, we'll pick up some more viewers. We'll get better at this as we go. It's new to both of us, so we're just hoping for some good conversation. We'll talk, like I said, about a lot of these movies, and what we want to do is we'll give them at the end of each of them, whether it's a episode of a show or a actual movie, we'll throw a rating on it for different categories, different things like that, and I'll give mine, he'll give his, and then we'll come to a consensus and we'll rate the movie overall. So all you movie heads out there, this might be something you wanna check out and get your not necessarily reviews, but something like that.
All right, so let's jump into episode 1 of The Mandalorian. Now, for me, like I told you guys earlier, I'm not a big Star Wars fan. It's definitely something new in my life. Right off the bat, I would say just a super intriguing series. As a person that knows nothing about The Mandalorian and their code, it automatically grasps your attention. And I think a lot of that's due to not only just the storyline, which they do have a great storyline, but I want to say the detail that Disney took to give you a series that looks like a movie.
The money they put into this series as well. I mean, these episodes each are honestly, in my Star Wars opinion here, I think this series is probably the best series that Star Wars has put out since, our best Star Wars content movie wise since the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars are top of my list for Star Wars content, but this show's been really good. I think there's been one episode that I wasn't thrilled with so far throughout the whole thing, but I still liked the episode. It just wasn't as intriguing as some of the other ones. Obviously they can't all be top of the line, but it was. I have no complaints with this series so far. I think it's fantastic.
I would definitely agree. I don't think that we'll agree on a lot of things, but one thing both of us do have in common is when it comes to content. And like Dom had said, the content that's brought to you on this series, for being a Disney series, in my opinion, as a person that doesn't always agree with things that Disney does,
Yeah.
it really gives you the balance that you need, because you're looking, as I've done more research into The Mandalorian, you're looking at a guy that's a killer, and a bounty hunter. So you're getting that fulfillment when you're watching the series, and it's always this kind of question of what's going to happen next, because it's just drawn you in so much. I mean, the first episode alone, just how they started off is just unreal. I think, when you're watching it and you're sitting there and you're thinking, as a person from my perspective, what are they going to do? And every second that goes on, it's like, wow, it can't get any better. And then it does, it gets better and better. I think the whole idea behind The Mandalorian, where you never see their face, is a really amazing concept. I think that one thing I'm sure we'll touch on in different episodes is that most people, and I didn't know, most Mandalorian armor has a symbol on it that kind of designates who they reside with, and the person that they've chose to film in this one doesn't have a symbol in his armor.
It affiliates him with their tribe, I guess. But see, and something that kind of threw me off actually about it, where I kind of disagree, is because I think that him not taking off his mask, being that it is kind of cool, it gives him that mystique, that mysterious kind of vibe, and just makes him look more intimidating. But it was kind of an inconsistency in the story, and I'm kind of unsure where they're at with that, because if you look back at other Star Wars content, not really including the EU in that, but just with Star Wars Rebels and Star Wars The Clone Wars, it brings up that inconsistency, because there's Mandalorians in there and they constantly have their helmets off, and even in it's not just in front of their family or their loved ones and things like that, but in front of enemies, friends, everybody, they're always running around without their helmets. So I thought that, being that it was pretty cool, thing that they introduced in The Mandalorian, but it created a huge inconsistency for me, because I don't understand where that came in. And so I don't know if that's something that happened after the purge, when the Empire came in and dropped the hammer on them, and it was something kind of new that they adopted, or if that's just something that is with the tribe that he's with, or what it is. I'm kind of unsure where they're at with that. And I mean, I'm sure maybe that'll get explored, because Star Wars fans don't ever take anything at face value. So I'm pretty sure at some point Disney's gonna have to address the situation and put something out. They're gonna have to either retcon something, or they're gonna have to make it make sense somehow.
And I think that's going to happen. I mean, again, I think my perspective is coming in as a new perspective of the whole series, and even as a new fan, you want to know why, because I've gone back and I've watched the movies, and I've recently started watching their animated stuff, so it does make you question, if in the past you've put out all this content where they have shown their face, why won't they do it now? I mean, for me, just as a fan first, not as a Star Wars enthusiast, I think it draws me back more and more every time, because I look at it and I'm like, wow, I know the actor, but I want to see his face. It just drives me crazy. But it's such a great series, and I'm really interested to see where it goes from here. When the series was introduced, obviously there was someone of Yoda's species that's introduced to the series. Now, again, for me being a newer fan, I was all for it. I thought it was cool. I thought it was a great thing that they brought into the series, because as someone that likes Yoda, I thought, well, I want to know more, especially at a younger form, because when we see Yoda, he's so much older. Obviously, even I know it's not Yoda.
900 years old.
But I know from my buddy Dom's point of view, it was a hit or miss kind of deal, because he kind of felt like bringing in this character could have ultimately kind of ruined part of the Star Wars series.
Yeah, well, I think a big thing is that I think Dave Filoni and the writers and everything, I think they took a huge risk on bringing in Baby Yoda, because obviously we don't even know Homeboy's name yet. Everybody's just calling him Baby Yoda, and nobody knows anything about their species, which is how George Lucas wanted it. And I mean, I don't know if it's something that's going to get explored, and they're going to kind of just go against what George Lucas wanted, and not with him not wanting people to explore anything about Yoda, or if Disney's just going to go with it and give us some kind of backstory. And really, what is this little guy's purpose? You know what I mean? What is him even being in this episode, or in the show, even about?
But I think a huge thing is I think they just took a really big risk because like look at Jar Jar Binks. Like I feel like this character had the potential to be another Jar Jar Binks, and like where either Star Wars fans like absolutely hated it and it ruined it for them, and because the stupidity of Jar Jar Binks was something that most fans, whether they're hardcore Star Wars fans or they're casual Star Wars fans, most of them hated it, and so I feel like that character definitely had the potential to go either way, and obviously it's worked out really well. Everybody fucking loves this little Yoda guy, and he's all over the place. But I mean, I think it was a gamble. I feel like, and
It was definitely a risk factor. I think, from my perspective, as I feel like this is going to be something that Disney takes to the big screen. If any of you guys watched any of the Disney Plus launch where they brought in a lot of the actors, a lot of their goal is to take anyone that's on their streaming service and move them to the big screen.
And I don't know, because I feel like, are you talking about like Baby Yoda being on big screen?
I think eventually we're going to see it because, in my opinion, I mean, obviously because the time frame is so weird, so obviously he's going to be a lot older. But I think depending on this last episode of the season, we're really going to kind of see where the series is going to go. But just in my theory, I feel like because it's what's left of the Empire at this point that's trying to get a hold of him.
Yeah.
And I think what they want is, most people are telling me they think they want him dead. I don't necessarily think that. I think they want to use him because he's able to use the Force.
He's Force sensitive.
Yeah.
I kind of feel the same way.
I feel like they want to put him in a position where they can focus on his fears and turn him evil, which for any of you that have seen the series, you can tell that whoever this Yoda species is generally got a good heart.
Yeah, but he's also extremely protective, which
which shows signs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could easily be turned. Like, I mean, when he straight up,
strangles the girl. Yeah.
Jumping ahead a little bit, a few episodes. Sorry for the spoilers, but if you haven't watched it yet. But yeah, he straight up chokes that chick when they're messing around. And that tripped me out. Like, I was not expecting that. But
and a lot of that reminded me of almost Anakin, and that's why I feel like what's left of the Empire is trying to use that perspective of it, because I feel like as a child, they, and not even just in this series, but in real life, think about kids. Kids are so vulnerable, and even though Yoda's 50 years old at this point, he's a baby.
yeah.
So I feel like they can put an impression on him to make him see their way. And a lot of the times when you, like, the dark side is a lot of emotional, how they get these guys like Anakin to turn,
Yeah, and I feel like maybe you're right too. I think we could potentially see him on the big screen, but I feel like it really depends on what they end up doing with his character. Like, if he's gonna, what is he gonna? They're gonna bring him in and be a little Mandalorian, which would be kind of cool, but it'd be weird. But
which is another theory I've thought of too. I mean, I don't know if I could ever really see that happen, because you have this Force sensitive kid, and is he really going to be a Mandalorian, like this 3 foot tall Yoda with a helmet?
And Mandalorians are already really distrustful of any Force users because of their history.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, is it his little clan? Are they gonna
be accepting?
Are they
of
gonna
him?
be accepting of him? Which obviously he's a foundling, which pretty much means that he was brought in. He's not a natural born bloodline Mandalorian.
Yes.
And which I find kind of crazy that that's what they went with the show being called the Mandalorian. But I guess technically he's brought in. He is a Mandalorian now, but he wasn't born into the Mandalorian culture. He was brought in. But and I mean, if you look at the EU, like, the Mandalorians were very accepting of anybody. It didn't matter your species or anything like that. It was pretty much just, were you worthy to be a Mandalorian? because you were a legit warrior.
Yeah.
Which obviously he's a Force user, so he has the potential to be a badass little dude.
Yeah,
But,
no, I agree.
Or is he gonna end up being hooking up with Rey because it's around that same time?
Yeah,
he's gonna be a little Jedi.
And it could be because, we're not going to go into that because that'll be a different episode, but, it's really up in the air, and I think that's kind of where Disney's going with those series, and it's genius, because it gets people like you, like me, that you're just hooked because you're like, what are they going to do with this kid,
Yeah.
And,
This chick trips me out. Sorry, the girl with the horns on her head, because it reminds me of the Clone Wars.
Yeah, the Darth. Yeah.
And then her fur.
Yeah. I tell you, I do like the concept that the guy they based this whole series off of was an orphan.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, you like that?
I like it. I do, and maybe it's just because I'm a newer fan to the whole series, but I like the concept of like a lot of their thought to rebuilding their clan is, and this is just my theory. I could be wrong. This is just my theory. You're getting kids that have no family. So that makes you a better bounty hunter. That makes you a better killer. It just makes you a better soldier because there's no connection
no
to
attachments.
Yeah, to humanity or whatever kind of life form they're attached to, whatever species they are. It just in my mind, I mean, I think that's a pretty ingenious concept because you don't have to worry about your emotion getting too intact, which you actually do see in this first episode where his emotions do get in the way. And
he does this first, and I think that was what his connection is he's a orphan, and then obviously this little kid, I mean, if you call him a little kid, he's 50 years old, but he's obviously not matured fully, but yeah, I think that's where he gets that emotion from his kid, or that connection with him, because he's an orphan too, and so. But like you said, it makes it a lot easier when you don't have a family, you don't have anything to lose.
Yeah.
To go out and be a bounty hunter or just a mercenary, whatever the case may be. But but as soon as he gets any kind of connection, like his entire now he's like carrying around this little baby.
Yeah, and it's just crazy because you don't. I don't know. I guess maybe I did expect it because. Like I said, being a newer fan, not knowing much about The Mandalorian before this and doing my research on it, the way I saw it was, and it's another theory that I've thought, when you watch the first episode and you see him when he's supposed to kill Yoda and he doesn't. One thought in my mind, and I could be wrong, it's just my theory, is I felt like, because Jedis have the power, and I know this is going to be not completely correct, but they can kind of manipulate your mind, and I feel like he kind of got into his head and made him see that he didn't need to be killed. And I could be wrong, what I said, like that's just my theory on the whole situation. I like the concept of it because then it makes you kind of think back if that is what happened, or if it's just this connection because he is an orphan. Because if you watch the series, for all you fans out there, you see there's a lot of flashbacks to where he sees his parents die as a young kid.
Yeah, and that's, what brings him in with his distrust with droids was during, he was obviously killed by, separatists, or his family was killed by separatist droids, and so he has this weird, or not. Well, I guess it's not weird, but
Yeah.
he has he does not like droids because of it. But remember, he wasn't supposed to kill Yoda or baby Yoda.
No, he wasn't. His puck was supposed to retrieve and bring back, but
they said either way, but he would just get paid less if he brought it back.
Yeah,
brought him back dead. But what kind of threw me off is the other bounty hunter, IG. What is it? IG for.
I can't think of what his name was, but the other droid that was sent there.
the other bounty hunter.
He was sent there to kill.
Yeah, he was gonna kill him, and I thought that was pretty crazy. He just capped that dude.
Yeah, and I guess in general, this series has just left a lot of opening, especially when you find out the characters down the road, their connections to both sides of the war. Um, for instance, the character I was kind of shocked by is the older man that he meets that helps him travel to find Baby Yoda.
That little guy?
The little guy, yeah, I can't think of his name. We got to do a little better on this, but obviously, when we get more into this, we'll do a little more research. But you find out that he was part of the Imperial Army, right?
Or he was like a slave.
Yeah, he was sold into the war, and you find out later that he kind of bought his way out. But it's just really interesting how like each player, or not player, but each character kind of has this big role in a small way. It's kind of weird to say, but I mean, you don't see these characters for very long, but they all are very impactful characters.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think this has been a great series thus far. You know, I think Disney's really taking the right approach and taking the time, which is a big factor in my opinion, to give you a story that, even though none of us are living in space, it's relatable in a way.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I could see that definitely. And I think there's a lot of stuff in there that's super relatable. But I mean, just even without that, it was just a genuinely like it was a good show, man. And it felt like Star Wars, like with when you're watching that travesty, The Last Jedi. And I'm sorry for everybody out there who enjoyed it, but it just didn't feel like Star Wars to me. And this one really, it feels like Star Wars, man. Like it just had that. Even if there was nothing personally that I could relate to, like the character or anything like that, like relating to what Star Wars is for people, you know what I mean? Like it felt like Star Wars.
Yeah.
And just the way it looked, everything, it was good. The music was fantastic. And I know actually a lot of people were kind of like complaining about the music because they said it was too much. It was too much, like too much Star Wars. I guess I don't really know what their argument about it. Just I thought it was good. I mean, you can't really. It's Star Wars. Like I don't expect to hear.
I don't expect to hear like a hip hop song coming on. I expect to hear like a symphony when I'm listening to Star Wars because
like background Lil Wayne playing.
Yeah, you're really expecting to hear an orchestra.
Yeah.
As crazy as it sounds, but even for me, I think this series has really kind of ignited my personal, I guess, little fanboy towards it because watching The Last Jedi was terrible to me. And I didn't really know much about Star Wars before I watched a lot of these. And The Last Jedi was just so awful that I didn't even know if I was going to give the show a shot. But, talking to Dom about it a little more, it really kind of just made me think, maybe they're going to get it right. And, fortunately for me and a ton of new fans out there who know nothing about Star Wars, which I'm sure there's a lot, you find this connection, you find this love for this series, even though you don't know who he is. I mean, because we really don't know who he is, but,
Well, I mean, it's kind of good that, what's his name, Pedro Pascal?
Yeah, Pedro Pascal.
It doesn't take off his mask because he's ugly. So, I don't know if I want to see him anyway,
I think it's... Speaking on that, I don't know about the ugliness, but
yeah, I mean he's ugly, bro.
But I am pretty shocked that Disney brought in some ringers, as far as like the people that are acting in these TV series, they're actually well-known actors and actresses. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool for me to see that,
Yeah, I mean Disney, man, they have they're like the Empire, man. They have unlimited resources.
Oh, well, they really do. I mean, like. It was only right for them to buy Star Wars because that's really what they are. They're the monopoly of the entertainment world.
I mean, you could just see it just in the funding that this show got. ridiculous. Like I don't. TV shows just don't.
They just don't
get that type
no,
of
they don't get that kind of revenue to
per episode.
No, yeah, the money that was produced for one episode usually goes into a season.
Yeah.
For most stuff.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, let's get to the part of the show where we rate what we feel. So we're gonna talk first on the visual effect on a scale of 1 to 10. Dom, what's your rating on the visual effect of this?
I mean, I would give it 8.
Okay.
What do you think?
And again, like I tell, and a lot of you fans are probably going to be irritated by this because I'm a newer person. I give it a 9 to 10, honestly, a 9.5. I'll cut it right in the middle. I don't know if we're doing that, but I'm going to cut it right in the middle. I give it a 9.5 because I feel like coming into watching this series, I was really expecting it to be really tacky. I'm not going to lie.
What?
I was really expecting it to be some, like, half-ass armor. I just was not expecting them to go the extra mile on it. And shame on me for thinking Disney would do any less. But, that was just my thought on it. Okay, so what would you say on the storyboard?
Story for episode 1 or
for episode 1?
I would go with 7. I think it was a great story. It was a good opening. One of the things that kind of threw me off, kind of killed it, was the episodes are super short. But I mean, by the end of it, like that bothered me at first. Like, I guess being a live action one, like I expected it to be like an hour long series. Like, I was thinking like Game of Thrones type of thing. Yeah. And it threw me off at first, but by as I've slowly progressed through, the season, like sometimes like I forget that I've been watching it for 30 minutes. Like it seems like it's a lot longer as it goes on. Like the first one, it wasn't. I didn't get that feeling, and that is definitely something that kind of turned me off. Like, I mean, it didn't change my view about the show at all. It was one of those things. Like,
just the expectation.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, that kind of sucked. Yeah. But I mean, story-wise, like the story is great. Like, it's filled with action. It brought out all the Star Wars stops that I needed. The fight scene when they go into the city and he gets that little stronghold and he gets he's going for the bounty, and he links up with the other bounty hunter in there. Like that was great. So I give it a solid 7 there.
I'm gonna give it an 8 for myself. Definitely because I feel like they gave your character an identity without giving away everything. I think the reason it falls short of a 10 for me is the length, definitely, because I mean and it's smart. I mean, I understand completely why they do it, because they draw you into the point where you just can't stop thinking about what's going to happen next, and that's when they stop. But I think it's great, because from start to finish, I mean, the opening scene in the episode, the guy walks in a bar and just doing work on people, cutting people in half. I mean,
you got that old West,
like
Clint Eastwood, like is it The Man with No Name?
And it gave me that old Western vibe of it was a shootout, and it's great. And speaking on the part that you're talking, where he meets up with the other bounty hunter, it's the same feeling. You got two guys versus an army, and you're sitting there thinking, how is this going to end? How can this possibly work out for them? So I definitely give it a solid 8. I think.
Goddamn Tombstone.
Yeah, it's kind of what it reminded me of, and I think for you fans that watch it, you'll kind of get that feeling if you're older like us and you've actually seen Tombstone. But I definitely would give it an 8. I think it's great, and the one thing I wish for more is, like, I've never watched Game of Thrones, but I do know, having an hour episode would be so much better for me. But I also think that goes back to funding.
I can't believe you haven't watched Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I know.
What is wrong with you?
I know. Maybe we'll talk about that. Maybe I'll jump into that.
Even an American?
No. Don't tell the Donald. and on that note, you've been listening to Shop Talk.
Not bad for some small town gallant morons. And we may not be famous, but somehow you heard of us.